Hey, welcome to Lombardi's Legends podcast. We are sponsored by the best sponsor, right?
Bleak Spirits.
It's awesome. And today we're making a drink. Wags, you are the master of the drink. So what are you making for us today?
Today we're making a Leapin' Greyhound. And so this is a really very basic drink. Of course, we're going to start with our Leap Spirits vodka. 1.5 ounces in each drink. And Dane, this is so easy. You can do this at home, either using a tumbler or a highball glass. And then next we're just going to get some grapefruit juice.
Great.
Fill that most of the way.
Guys, I love this. This is looking really good.
Absolutely. And then just a splash of cranberry juice.
Ooh. Wisconsin's finest cranberry juice.
Absolutely. And then we're going to garnish with some grapefruit slices.
Look at this.
And we're all set to go.
Cheers.
Cheers,
Go Pack
buddy.
Go.
Go Pack Go.
Every year I know we gonna go hard. We been that team ever since Bart started. All my cheese heads go pack go. Ain't showing no mercy, cutting no slack, no. I ain't a bad sport and I'll even wish you good luck. Only thing I will.
Good evening and welcome into Lombardi's Legend podcast. I am Wags. Joining me as always is Dane and
What up?
What's up, Dane? We're previewing the 3-6 Packers amidst a 5-game losing streak, hosting the Dallas Cowboys this weekend. It's so bad, folks, that we decided to skip our Monday recap, and who can blame us? Dane, this is getting to be, a struggling season of epic fortunes that none of us saw coming. But do you have any thoughts, I guess, just before we get into this week's matchup? I know you had the frustrations. I had some frustrations on the state of this team. We'll get into some of the key injuries, the bad news there from last week. But, man, I really thought that we would see a four-quarter performance on both sides of the ball last week with the Lions. But defense was pretty good. Offense, again, did not show up. So, Dane, what's your state of mind with this season as we embark on Mike McCarthy's return to London?
I can't believe it, Wags. It's so bad. The fact that we lost to the Detroit Lions says it all. Detroit Lions were a one-win team. Green Bay comes into Detroit, we lose the football game. It's as bad as we could have, feared. It's pretty bad football. The Packer offense, yet again, looks completely abysmal. And now we have Mike McCarthy coming in to Green Bay. And you and I circled this before the season started, buddy, as a game you and I wanted to go to. This is a game that we were like, this is a big deal. This could be like a battle of the juggernauts. Mike McCarthy coming back home to Green Bay. And now look what we have. We have a bad Packer football team playing the Dallas Cowboys at home. And right now, I would love to see a victory, but it's exceedingly frustrating to see what we're seeing. And I'm extremely disappointed in this season by the Green Bay Packers. I don't think I'm saying anything that's out of turn from Green Bay Packer fans. And now Mike McCarthy's coming to town. I'd love to kick the crap out of the Dallas Cowboys, but I just don't know if the Packers have that fight in them right now. This is a 3-5 football team that looks like a team that is lucky to have won a football game over the last 5 weeks.
Yeah, so the next 3 opponents, albeit 2 games at home here with the Cowboys this week and then the Titans next Thursday night. Next 3 opponents, 19-5 combined records. So the supposed easy part of the schedule is long in our rearview mirror. And so believe it or not, mathematically, the Packers are still only 1.5 games out of the NFC. In the NFC. I don't understand it either, Dane, but somehow they're not mathematically eliminated, and they may not be for a while. So it's, we're frustrated. Packer fans are frustrated. It seems like this season is over for all intents and purposes after that loss last week. So I'm not going to hold out hope that things turn around. But Dean, we're a Packer podcast, so what are we going to do except to talk about the Packers and the games that we have in front of us? And quite honestly, let's just see if we can get some wins. I just want to have something good to hang on to and some glimmer of positivity to talk about one of these weeks. We've never had to go through a 5 game losing streak. We started this podcast in the midst of Mike McCarthy's last season, so now it comes full circle, and here we are. And even in that, they didn't have any 5 game losing streaks. That was I felt about as bad as it could get with Aaron Rodgers on their center as quarterback. And here we are, 5 years later, and it's come full circle. So go figure. But yeah, Dane, I think let's just dive in. Got some roster. There were some big injuries. I think let's start with Sean Gary out for the season, ACL injury. Obviously, a devastating injury. No matter what the record is, and you have to hope that that isn't something that bleeds into next year. But based on the timing, that's going to be not the type of injury you want your budding star defensive lineman, or I guess I should say outside linebacker, having a breakout season. And it's a tough one to see that happen. But what do you think the immediate impact is to this Packer defense game?
Well, if you had asked me, Wags, this week after a 5 game losing streak, what would have been the worst injury the Packers could have had, I would say a long-term injury to Rashawn Gary. That's my honest answer. I think that he is a centerpiece to the Green Bay Packers defense long term. So looking at it from that way, it's tough. It's a tough loss. This week and going forward, we're going to have to dig deep with our outside pass rushers. This is already a thin group going into this week. Tipa Nalei is a guy who's been injured. I think we've seen an emergence from JJ Enagbare, and now JJ is going to get thrust right in front and center. And he's very likely starting this week. He's a 5th-round rookie. Dude's probably going to be playing an awful lot of snaps this week. We saw Jonathan Garvin kind of get scrapped. He's been a healthy scratch some weeks. So the Packers clearly don't have like a lot of trust in him. I could see Ladarius Hamilton getting called up quite a bit. It's a thin roster spot at this point, and now the Packers are just going to roll out the best guys that they have. So, Wags, there's not a lot of answers right now. I wish I could say that there's a bunch of dudes lining up to take names, but right now there's some practice squad guys, and the Packers are just going to roll some guys out, and hopefully somebody catches fire. JJ Enagbare on the other side of Preston Smith has played well in limited snaps, but now we're asking a lot of a 5th-round rookie. Dude's gonna be playing a ton of snaps. It's a tough row to hoe going forward with Rashawn Gary out the remainder of the season.
Yeah, it's gonna be interesting to see how the Cowboys want to game plan against the Packers because different position, but it looks like Devondre Campbell hasn't returned to practice, and then of course Chris Barnes, who was activated off the IR and played last week, is also nursing a knee injury and isn't practicing this week. So really thin at the entire linebacker position, both inside and outside. And so this is a Cowboys team. Ezekiel Elliott is nursing injury. Probably would be a surprise if he plays this week, but it looks like they missed it too much the last couple of weeks. So that's going to be interesting to see how they attack. And of course, Dak Prescott is just getting more and more healthy as he's returned here recently. This is a Cowboy offense that I think just kind of held together, leaned on their defense, and that's how they've gotten the record that they've got. But don't kid yourself, they've got some weapons, and I think with Dak Prescott back at quarterback, I'm not the biggest Dak Prescott fan. However, we've seen in a one-game situation, he can really cause a lot of problems. And so it's going to be a little bit of a different Cowboy offense that this Packer defense is going to have to be prepared for than what you're looking at on paper statistically, or what they've been able to do to attack teams all season. So there's more dynamic ability, I think, of this offense with Dak Prescott on the center, no doubt about that. Dane, what then do you expect the Packers to do? Is it going to be McDuffie and Quay Walker in the middle again this week if Devondre Campbell and Chris Barnes are?
It has to be. It has to be, and that's tough to swallow too. I mean, this is what we're looking at, Wags. This is a roster right now that has a lot of injuries to it, but also isn't deep in certain spots, and they're getting exposed. And forgive me, folks listening. I'm normally pretty optimistic, but I'm frustrated because this is a team that right now just. You're seeing the weaknesses exposed throughout the roster, and we have a number of inside linebackers through the course of the last few years. But McDuffie's gonna have to play now. I'll tell you what, McDuffie has played some good football for the Packers. Better than I would have expected the last couple of weeks. But now we're going to lean on him yet again. I've got to think that Isaiah McDuffie, if Chris Barnes is unable to go, he's going to be the guy in the middle. And then after that, it gets extremely thin. Do the Packers go to a nickel or a dime, right? We only have so many guys on the inside of this defense right now. So this is a thin defense in the inside. And I don't think Devondre Campbell's going to go. He hasn't practiced all week, as you mentioned. So this is what we're dealing with, and it's tough. It's a tough road to swallow right now. It just is, Wags.
Yeah. So this is going to be a defense that is going to hold things together. It's going to have to be at the secondary. So let's talk a little bit about what they've done there this week. Of course, Eric Stokes goes out with an injury, and that could be a long-term injury as well. So they were active, finally. We're 3-6 and Greedy gets active. But the Raiders cut Jonathan Abram this week, former first-round pick in 2019 draft. In fact, was drafted 6 picks after Darnell Savage went in that same draft. And so the Packers put in a waiver claim, and they've got Jonathan Abram on the roster now. So, Dane, I ask you, let's just dive right into this perspective scenario.
Yeah.
Did the Packers just go out there with Quay Walker as the lone inside linebacker, similar to what they did with Devondre Campbell last year? Roll the dice. Let's throw Jonathan Abram right into the fire out there at safety next to Adrian Amos, and is this now the guy that enables defensive coordinator Joe Barry to play Darnell Savage in the slot more often, and then by design you're putting your guys moving your guys around with Will Douglas is now outside and not at the slot.
Well,
we said offline and I know folks are going to say I'm crazy for saying this, but could this secondary have improved, not because they're losing Eric Stokes, but because this allows a couple of guys to potentially be in a position that's a more natural fit for their abilities moving forward? Well,
I'm not against it. I mean, this is a Packer coaching staff, Wags, and I'm curious I want to hear your take too. This is a Packer coaching staff that's talked about Darnell Savage Jr. maybe being impactful at the slot position for this defense. If they actually believe it, I want to see it happen. I want to see them put him in there because he has not been impactful at the safety role this year for this defense, right? So I would love to see Darnell Savage at least get an opportunity, and I think Jonathan Abram, the dude, he can play football. I have read a ton of message boards from the Raiders fans. We've talked to Raiders fans offline, and Raiders fans have said, you know what? Jonathan Abram's kind of a scapegoat. That's what I keep hearing from Raiders fans. He's been a scapegoat for this current coaching staff and this current GM, and maybe he hasn't lived up to that first-round draft potential, but a lot of these fans have talked about, like, that's the guy you're cutting right now. You know, like, it doesn't seem like fans for Raiders were hugely down on Jonathan Abram. They thought he was okay, and they thought that he's gotten better as the season's progressed. So I'll tell you what, I'm glad the Packers were able to place a claim. I've seen time and time again people say that when he got released, they said, you know what? Dude's going to get picked up off waivers. And they were trashing the Raiders for releasing him. So I'm glad the Green Bay is going to take a shot. They're going to take a look at a guy. So now I'm curious to see what they do with Darnell Savage. Because right now he hasn't been good. Do they put him into that slot role? Maybe, putting Rasul. We've talked about it, Wags, right? You and I have talked a lot, extensively on this podcast. Rasul Douglas is probably better on the outside. So now Rasul's going to be outside. Jair's going to be outside. Does Darnell Savage slot in there? I say let's go for it. We're a 3-5 football team. We're a team right now that is scraping to try to find answers, try to find ways to win football games. Any win at this point is going to be a big deal for this Green Bay Packer football team. And if Jonathan Abram can come in and we can put guys in different positioning, I say I'm all for it. Now, I'm curious. I'm going to put the question back on you. Are you comfortable with putting Darnell Savage in the slot based on the current personnel that we have on this defense?
Well, he played a lot of slot under Coach Pep. And he did really well. So I think, in fact, he was playing almost 70% of his snaps in the slot. So whether that was, truly lined up against the other opposing team's slot receiver, or that was just more positionally where he was lined up on the field, that's where he's played his best football for the Packers. From that respect, I definitely think we need to try it. This is a guy that, is he worth a reclamation? Well, you're 3-6 right now, Dan. I think you should be willing to try anything. And former first-round pick, you've got now a guy on the roster. Coach Berry has said, he'd love to move Darnell Savage back to the slot, and didn't feel like he had the guy on the roster to put back at safety. And now does he have that guy with Jonathan Abram on the roster? Well, let's find out, honestly. And then, is this an opportunity to get an extra DB out of field, whether that's cornerback and Tajon Mixon, who's done pretty adequately as well. I think in the snaps he's been out there. Perhaps that allows Darnell Savage to be more of a roller, and he doesn't need to think about his responsibility for covering a certain quadrant of the field. Just hasn't been a strength of his. And can he freelance and just try to make the plays? And that's been something we've been talking about all season. Is it just doesn't feel like the defense. It's been good and okay at times, and at times just hasn't really been dialed in for a full 4 quarters. But overall, just has lacked a little bit of creativity and aggressiveness and swagger. And so maybe that's something that, if it doesn't work, the worst case is it doesn't work, and you kind of know what you've got with Darnell Savage moving forward. Why not see if this works, and if this is a more natural fit in Coach Berry's defense, and if we can get him turned around, heck, then we've got an answer. At least what we want to do.
No, I hear that. Now, it's a hard thing to look at, right? And I'm looking at comments. We're going to talk. David Henderson, what's up, Dave? We'll talk about the offense here in a little bit. And I want to answer that question about Aaron Rodgers, but I'll tell you what. I feel like we're still searching for answers, right, across the board here. Is there anybody? Looking even at matchups, Wags, and maybe it doesn't matter, right? Against the Dallas Cowboys, doesn't matter at this point who we're matching up against. I don't know. But looking this week, do you see any matchups against the Dallas Cowboys where you go, okay, we can maybe find some wins here or find ways to exploit this Dallas Cowboys offense? Because, I'll tell you what, you and I are optimistic Packer fans, and I said they were 3-5. They're 3-6. I think I'm in denial, saying that they were 3-5. I'm still thinking about 3-5 Green Bay Packers. We're 3-6. I still want to get some wins here. I'm not one of those fans that's looking at draft potential. I want to go win some football games. So how are we going to take on this Dallas offense this week as a Green Bay Packer defense?
Yeah, well, it's a great question.
Thank you.
Yes. I would love to say that we can't let them run the ball. And
Yeah.
that's been a pain point for us most of the season when it comes to this defense. And I think they actually did pretty adequate last week. We've had
Yeah.
a couple of weeks where they've done okay against the run, um, but this is not a week where you can really let them get a rhythm running the ball because they've got weapons on the outside. And like I said, on paper, if you can go and look at all the statistics on paper, it's not Cooper Rush at fullback anymore this week with this offense.
Yeah.
CeeDee Lamb, he's good. He doesn't scare me that much compared to other receivers we faced around the league, but definitely he's good enough to hurt you. No doubt about that. You look at this pass offense, and they don't have a lot outside of CeeDee. I mean, Michael Gallup has had moments, but super inconsistent. Not a guy that you're going to be terribly worried about. Is he good enough to hurt you if you lose track of him? Absolutely. Um, but I don't need what I don't need to see is Tony Pollard, running at will against this Packer defense. And if Ezekiel Elliott plays, he'll probably be on a snap count. But this is not a Dallas offense that's multi-dimensional. If you're able to slow them down a little bit, they've not been super explosive. I know they put up 49 points here in a recent performance, but realistically, this is a game that the Packers should really stick to. I think on the defensive side of the ball, a similar game plan as they did against the Colts last week. Dak is better than Jared Goff, in my opinion, but is he exponentially better? I don't know that he really is, and he's not someone that's going to hurt you a lot with his legs at this point. I think he's going to probably want to protect himself with some of the injuries that he's had. Can he at times? Sure, but honestly, I just don't want them to gash us against the run because I think our secondary does match up pretty well against this Dallas passing offense, and so the run game is where they could really get a rhythm and cause us the problems if we're not able to pull them track. So that's really my focus this week. But what say you? Is there something else
Yeah.
that
No, I think you're right. I mean, Wags, I remember, we're old enough to remember 4 or 5 years ago. Do you remember when this Dallas Cowboy offensive line was like the cream of the crop? Everybody was talking about this as being the best offensive line in football. That's not the case anymore, right? I mean, it's just not. It's the NFL. 5 years is forever. And I look at Tyler Smith, who's had some injury histories. I look at Terrence Steele on the right side. This is an offensive line that I think this Green Bay Packers defensive line can exploit. I think Dean Lowry, in particular, is somebody that just hasn't been anywhere near as good as he was last season. And the Packers paying him a lot of money comparative for his production at this point. And I'd like to see maybe him start getting phased out a little bit of this defensive line. I'd like the Packers. Listen, you're 3-6. I'd like to see T.J. Slayton get some more snaps on this line. I saw Devontae Wyatt last week starting to get snaps later in that game, and I'd like to see Wyatt continue to get some snaps. At this point, Wags, the Packers spent a first-round pick on Wyatt. T.J. Slayton has shown when he gets higher reps, he can produce. I want to see some of these young guys get an opportunity to get out there, and it feels odd to me that somebody like a Dean Lowry is still out there, soaking up as many snaps as he is, when we seems to have some younger guys behind him that have either impact and higher snaps or high draft potential. So, I look at this offensive line for Dallas Cowboys, and I say, you know what, this is an offensive line I think we can exploit a little bit more with some younger, faster defensive linemen. I think I'm down on Dean Lowry at this point. I hate to call out one guy, but I think he's kind of aged out of this defense, and I want to see the Packers really try to exploit it with some of these younger defensive linemen. And that's where I'm at right now, looking at this.
Well, Dan, I was calling for the Packers to cut Dean Lowry from season. So,
Fair.
He surprised me last year. I'll give him credit
Yeah.
for that too.
True.
He had a good season last year, and that was a surprise to me. But yeah, he's going to be a free agent for the season.
Time to go.
Listen, the Packers coaching staff is not going to be in a position of some of the fans saying we should just lose out and play the young guys and get the best draft pick possible. So that's not what they're going to do. They're going to put the best guys out there. But I agree with you. This is a situation where, performance-wise, what you're doing from Dean Lowry at this point, it's not impact level play.
Right.
So why not put the young guys in there and see what they can do? And it might not be better, but it could be. And I don't think it's going to be much worse. It's
That's
kind of
right.
the way I look at it. And so, and you're not. I would be pretty mad actually. The Packers brought Dean Lowry back after the season.
Me too.
This should be his last year in baseball. You know, he's been a Packer for a while. Good luck to him, but I think he's probably at the tail end of his career. He just isn't doing much for us. So I'm in the same boat. That's been something I've been calling for a while. Not every week or anything. It's not glaring, but with the guys that we have, that is definitely something that we could do that could help this run game. Get those guys in there, Slayton and Wyatt, next to Kenny Clark, and let's see what those three guys can do. Sharon Reed played pretty well at times this year. I'm comfortable, even though he's probably not long for this Packers roster either. I'm comfortable with him continuing to be out there based on his performance. At least he's showing up at times and making something. Dean Lowry, it's just like he's an invisible guy.
I agree. Wait.
Dane, yeah, go ahead. I was just going to
No, I was going to ask you if you had anything else on the defensive side before we go to a commercial break. I mean, I'm curious what your take is.
Not really. I guess, just looking at some of the other Packers Cowboys games that we've had with that center, am I undervaluing or diminishing the impact that he can have at all, Dane, or do you feel like my quick summary of what we can expect with Prescott this week is pretty reasonable and fair?
Yeah, you're right. I mean, I think that ankle injury actually kind of effed up Dak Prescott. I'm not going to lie. I think that he's a nice football player, but at the end of the day, he was a 4th-round pick that's overachieving. It's kind of, honestly, like Tony Romo. Tony Romo is, 7th rounder, an undrafted guy, but kind of like an overachieving guy who's going to win you some football games, but at the end of the day, I'm not sure if they're that, upper echelon quarterback. And I don't think that Dak's going to be all that mobile. The question becomes, are the Packers going to be able to get some pressure? So far this year, this Packers defense has done, I think, an admirable job against decent offenses. But, when the offense isn't helping them out, it just they get long in the tooth and they get beat as the game wears on. So the question becomes this week, to your point, can we stop the run? If we're able to stop the run and make Dak Prescott sit back there and throw the football, can we get off the field on 3rd down? That's the next question. We're really good on those 1 and 2 down, but it seems like on 3rd and long, we've had some challenges this year. So that's, there's a process here with this Green Bay Packer defense, but I do like Rasul Douglas on the outside, and I don't want to see Eric Stokes injured long term, but I do like the idea of Rasul on the outside, and whether it's Keyshawn Nixon, Darnell Savage, or otherwise, against this Dak Prescott passing game, I like what this Packer defense potentially can do. Now, the offense is going to be another question. We'll get to that in a second. But I do I think that we can minimize what Dak Prescott can do against his defense.
Yeah, absolutely. So, folks, thanks for all the comments in the chat. I think we're going to get to some of those. But before we do that, let's take a quick break. So stick with us. Let's take a quick break to talk about our sponsor, DraftKings Sportsbook. So just imagine this scenario, Mason Crosby lining up for an onside kick. Being one of these weeks, we're going to get this opportunity.
We're going to get one.
Are slim, stakes are high. Packers got a 5-game losing streak on the line. Your pulse
Come on, baby.
He kicks it. You watch it as the ball lands. And that's what every play is like with DraftKings Sportsbook, an official sports betting partner of the NFL. And their unbeatable offer right now, new customers can make any $5 NFL bet and get $200 in free bets if you choose.
Yeah, Wags, I'll tell you what, buddy. The check this out. In addition to the usual bets, everyone can boost their winnings with DraftKings stepped up same game parlays. And I look at this week, we're talking week 10 right now, right, Wags? And I look at some of these matchups. I look at the Seahawks versus the Buccaneers, whether it's the Saints versus the Steelers. Everybody, Wags, is going to have their picks this week of games that they want to bet on. Hell, even Green Bay Packers at home against the Dallas Cowboys. There's matchups this week, Wags. And there's all these games, there's all these players that we're excited about. But I'll tell you what, to make things even sweeter, you can throw down on stepped up same game parlays once per game day all season long.
Yeah, and I don't know if there's any same game parlays you like. Then I'd be hammering the under in the Packers Cowboys game, 42.
Totally agree.
One of the same game parlays. Now you can decide what other direction you want to do, but I don't see this as a high scoring game at all.
No.
So folks, anyways, thanks so much for checking out DraftKings. Download DraftKings Sportsbook app now. Use promo code TPPN. Get a $200 in free bets if your team wins. Just place $5 bet on any NFL football game only at DraftKings Sportsbook using code TPPN. Minimum age and eligibility restrictions apply. See show notes for details. So, Dan, I'm going to hand this over to you. I think let's hit up some of the comments in the chat. So, let's get that up and we can talk a little bit based on some of the questions we have here that'll lead into some of the discussion on the offensive side of the ball, and then anything that's not in it, kind of hit up on the offensive side of the ball as well.
Yeah, I mean, real talk, guys. This Packers offense is kind of a mess. I'm not going to sugarcoat it, and I'm reading some of these comments right now. And David, what's up, brother? We lose. Aaron Rodgers should be benched. Let's see what Jordan Love can do. I mean, that you're not saying what some Packer fans. You're not alone. Some Packer fans are saying that. I don't see that happening. Matt LaFleur is not going to bench Aaron Rodgers. I mean, he's been on this guy's hip since he came to Green Bay. If you bench Aaron Rodgers now, the Packers just gave Aaron a 3-year deal. He's making $50 million this year. They're not benching Aaron Rodgers. That's where I'm at, Wags. I want to hear your input, of course, as well. But I don't see Aaron Rodgers getting benched, quote unquote, until the last couple games, and they'll blame it on some kind of injury as he's getting older, and then Jordan Love might slide in. We saw that with Brett Hundley a few years ago, but I don't see Aaron Rodgers getting benched anytime soon.
Yeah, probably not. But I wouldn't be shocked if they have some games here in the next few weeks that get out of hand. If Aaron Rodgers isn't playing in the late third quarter.
Fair.
I don't know. Tells me is that a benching? Maybe not. So we'll see. Honestly, it kind of just bumps me out to have the discussion. So
we're talking about this.
Yeah. Okay. So I get it. It's like someone's got to be accountable. So David, I'm not picking on your observation.
No.
It's a fair one. But at the same time, how does that really benefit us? Objective is, I guess, my question. So let's go out there. I just want to win. You said it earlier, Dane. It sucks to lose football games. I'm not used to it. Are the Packers really going to make a run at this? Nothing that we've seen in the last month plus tells us. So I'm not sugarcoating the situation at all. So don't get me wrong. But I just want to go out there and get the win. Let's see how many wins this team can get. Let's snap this 5-game losing streak. And, let's see if we can play some better football down the stretch. I think that's really what I'm looking for. So I don't know if that's a real solution, but we will definitely see. So, Dana, let's I think there's some more comments coming in here, but honestly, I just want to touch on a couple of things with Packers offense. So looking at this, it appears that the offensive line that played last week with both Elton Jenkins and David Bakhtiari for only the second time this season. And it looks like both of them were practicing again today. So we will see what actually happens. I think Elton Jenkins is good to go. David Bakhtiari is always a who knows up until Sunday. But offensive line is coming together. So that's one silver lining. They did not build on that game in Buffalo with running the football
Right.
last week. That's the negative. The offense looked as bad as it could possibly look against the worst defense in the league last week. And Aaron Rodgers looked as bad, and this kind of catapults on David's observation. That's as bad as he's looked in a long, long time. And Dane, I said last week, game plan, let's throw the ball more in between the 20s, get down into the red zone, make sure to run the ball. Detroit's terrible at run zone rush defense. And what do? We got first and goal, and we're passing the ball, and we throw the interceptions.
I don't get it.
And that's what killed us. If we just run the ball in those situations, punch the ball over the goal line, we might be. That's a whole different ballgame. And if, I get it, but it's like the Packers are making things look so much more difficult than they need to be on the opposite side of the ball. I'm curious what you think about this. Did that game against Detroit seem a little bit like Buffalo? Aaron says, okay, Coach LaFleur, we'll do it your way. And then Detroit's my choice. I want to do it my way. It certainly didn't work out for Aaron Rodgers.
That's a great way to put it, Wags. I totally agree with you, and I hadn't thought about it that way, but it does feel like that. And you know what's frustrating about that? Buffalo, I feel like we look more complete, and against Detroit, with the way it was just kind of ragged. It didn't feel right. There was no flow to the offense, clearly. And you're right. When we got near the goal line, especially, it was sickening. That second down play, and forgive me, folks, I know we're running a Packer podcast here, but I've kind of blocked it out of my brain what quarter that was in, where Rodgers on second down throws a fade route and Watkins kind of does an in route. Whatever quarter, whenever that happened, it made me sick to my stomach watching that play series. I feel like the Packers, they had 3 plays, second, third, and fourth down to run at, a yard, and they decided not to do it. I also, Wags, I don't understand, and with all due respect to A.J. Dillon, Aaron Jones, despite his smaller stature for an NFL running back, he's very good at getting short yardage downs. He's very good at picking up short yardage. And the Packers have seemed to have gone away from him this year on some of these short yardage plays. And all of this culminates in just not a lot of success near the goal line. And I know I'm rambling a little bit, but I'm just frustrated, Wicks. I'm frustrated by how this season's going. I'm frustrated by how the offense looks. So, I don't understand it. I don't understand the Aaron Rodgers playbook in Week 9 against the Detroit Lions. They just didn't look like a complete offense whatsoever, and we saw it in the scoreboard. Rodgers threw 3 interceptions. They looked poor, and Rodgers looked about as bad as I can remember.
Yeah, well, and the first interception he threw, it was an RPO. Rodgers said after the game, I should have stuck with the run call. And in line, you could see he should have run the ball. And so it's like, what is his mentality there? If he is taking that approach, and I'm glad he admitted he should have stuck with the run call in that RPO. But what does that say? Also, the fact that he did it in that situation. Right. And I know it's always easy to look at a replay and say, oh, well, A.J. Dillon would have walked into the end zone if he would just hand the ball off. But A.J. Dillon would have walked into the end zone if he would have handed that ball off. And then the second time they're inside, we've got first and goal from the 1. You throw on first down with first and goal from the 1. Incomplete. Second down, you run straight up the middle with A.J. Dillon. Defense pinches in. And then third down, we throw a terrible play call to Sammy Watkins. It wasn't even close. And then on fourth down, we're throwing again to David Bakhtiari.
What is that?
So it's what are we doing? If you want to do something crazy and try to throw the ball to David Bakhtiari, don't do it on fourth down. please. Is that so? That's what I'm talking about, and that's a coaching issue right there. But it's a coaching and quarterback issue because they're not on the same page. They haven't been on the same page all season. Aaron wants to do an offense the way that he's always wanted to play it. They don't have the personnel to execute that, or if they do, he is refusing to work with those guys, and this is the result. It's just plain and simple. This is the result. Everybody deserves blame, and this is a team that was designed to run the ball. And I know Aaron Jones got hurt, but it was pretty late in the game, and once again, he only had 9 carries last week against Detroit. And Detroit was selling out to stop the run. I get it. But there's other teams around this league that have figured out a way to run the ball effectively in the second half, to stick to your game plan, and it's like the Packers continue to fight against themselves. So what does that mean for this week against Detroit? Well, I don't know. Romeo Doubs is probably going to be out at least a few weeks. He has put on an IR at this point, but I really don't expect him to stay. We'll have Alan Lazard, and I thought he had a pretty good game last week. That's about as much as you can ask for from Alan Lazard, realistically. Christian Watson, I mean, the dude can't stay healthy. It looks like he got kind of taken off the field. It's a new world order. He didn't really have a concussion. He's had the wind knocked out of him, but spotter pulls him. They won't let him go back in. He's coming off a concussion. He's in concussion protocol. He's not on the injury list anymore. This week. He's going to play.
What's going on?
I mean, Sammy Watkins is kind of 0 to a negative in this Packers passing offense. So, I'd love to sit here and say the Packers, can we just run the ball? Can that be our game plan? But it seems like we've got a coach and quarterback that can't get on the same page.
Right.
Making a 4-quarter offensive game plan that's predicated on doing the things that personnel-wise they should be doing. So, we can sit here every damn week and say the Packers should run the ball more, but they're not doing it. So I sound just as bad as Coach LaFleur in the press conferences if we sit here and say, well, this is the week we're going to run the ball more. I don't think it's going to happen.
It's not going to happen.
So then I ask you, if the Packers are going to break the 5-game winning streak, the offense is going to have to do something this week. So is Aaron just magically going to play much better because he's pissed at himself for playing so poorly? Does he have the ability to bounce back and raise all tides at this point? Nothing that's happened so far this season tells me he can. But is that his plan? Is that what he wants to do? And are we going to just have to give in to that and allow Aaron Rodgers to do what he needs to do to feel good about what the Packer offense might look like?
I mean, probably not, is my honest answer. I don't know if you mentioned, they don't have the personnel for Aaron to just sit back there and wing it, right? It's just, I don't have an answer for what this Green Bay Packers offense is going to do this week against Dallas. I look at Dallas up and down, and they've got guys that can play, right? I mean, I look at Van Der Esch in the middle of that defense. I look at somebody like a Trayvon Diggs who, is a bit of a stat chaser as far as I'm concerned, but he still gets those stats, right? He's a guy who's an opportunist, and I don't think the Packers have any offensive weapons outside of an Aaron Jones that can really push downfield and be those deep threats. Christian Watson, he's all at this point potential. We haven't seen it though, right, in the game. So I have a lot of concerns this week about what this Green Bay Packer offense can do, and we have a quarterback that I love. Aaron's best. He's my favorite player, but is he going to play within an offense? I don't know if that's the case. And Wags, you said it all, right, man? He and LaFleur are certainly not on the same page this year. Aaron wants to wing it and kind of sling it a little bit, and I just don't think we have the guy. Sammy Watkins has not been the guy to do it. Who's he throwing to that makes you think that he can dig out? I just don't know if we have that this year. So I'm not sure what the answers are going to be, especially, we have 3 wins early in the year. We've lost 5 in a row. What are the answers? But at the end of the day, though, all of that aside, Rodgers making $50 million a year. So I'm going to have to say, yeah, Aaron's going to have to dig us out and find a way to win this football game. Otherwise, what are we doing with this? So that's at the end of the day, that's what I'm going to have to lean on is we're going to rely on this back-to-back MVP, Aaron Rodgers, to find a way to go win some football games for us.
Oh, I was just muted. I apologize. Maybe it's one of those things too. Where, like we were talking about on the defense side, defensive lineman, getting some of the young guys in there. Maybe it's just we've got what we've got. So if Christian Watson's healthy, let's take advantage of whatever window. And I mean, I hope for his sake. I don't need to be snarky, but I hope for his sake to be able to stay healthy. But let's take advantage of whatever window we have to see what we have with Christian Watson this week. So hey, let's see what we can do with it.
Whatever window we have this week. I love it. I mean, it's the reality, though, is dude gets tackled and he gets hurt. And we're not trying to be jerks, right? But that's the reality. It's very frustrating for us. We spend a second-round pick on a guy who seems to fold every time he gets hit, right? Sorry, it's true.
Yeah, and this is a Cowboys defense that's predicated on getting pressure on the quarterback. Obviously, Mike Parsons is having quite honestly, a defensive player of the year type of season. And so the Cowboys' pass defense is very, very good because it's hard to get rid of football. They've got corners that play aggressively and try to be physical with you at the line of scrimmage. They like to force opposing offenses into making mistakes. The last couple of seasons, they have taken it down on a lot of films opposing offense. So we know Aaron Rodgers doesn't like to throw interceptions. Last week, he threw a handful. So he's going to have to get rid of football. He can't just stay back there and be afraid to make a play because he's afraid of throwing an interception. So we'll see what his mentality is, I think, pretty early on. But we're going to have to be aggressive, get rid of the ball quickly, and we're going to have to be able to run the ball. Yes, there I did it again. Now again this week. And so it's keeping them off balance. It is Micah Parsons, someone that David Bakhtiari and Josh Neiman are going to be able to handle alone, depending on what side he's lined up on. We'll see. I think they're going to try to do what they can there, but they might need, even David might need a little bit of help with this guy. So if Packers want to try to get a vertical pass offense going, Aaron's going to have time to throw. The interior of this offensive line, I think, has been much better with the reshuffling that they did with Elton Jenkins at guard and left guard, and certainly with John Runyon Jr. It's a little mixed up, but I think they'll probably go this week at right guard. So, I'm not terribly concerned about the Cowboys pass rush up the middle. I think we've showed things up pretty well. So you're really talking about moving the pocket, giving Aaron some time to throw, and let's see what some of these other young guys can do. It's not Romeo Dobbs this week. Christian Watson, Bob Tunyon, and Sam Zard. And then let's continue to see if we can have a streak of games that Aaron Jones gets more than 10 carries in a game. That streak ended at 1 last week, so maybe we can get the streak going again and see if we can go get to 2, starting with this week.
Wags, I want to ask you a question. So we're 10 weeks into this year. What is the strong point of this Green Bay Packer offense? Is it a reshuffled offensive line 4 times over? And that's an honest question. What's the strong point of this offense at this point?
The strong point of this offense is drawing pass interference flags and getting first down. Really extra Starkey. I think one other thing that we have in our favor is we know Coach McCarthy will bundle the timeout situation.
Oh, it's going to be good.
Would be extremely disappointed. Will this Packer offense take advantage of that? Probably not. But at the same time, we'll get an opportunity. Will Aaron Rodgers be playing better? Just because, no matter what he says, that he and McCarthy are probably not the biggest fans of each other at this point.
Yes.
And, Aaron Rodgers more so on his end than I would say McCarthy probably is on his end of things. But they're both going to want to stick it to each other. Don't kid yourself. McCarthy's going to want to come into Green Bay, like, and prove that he's an amazing coach. And the thing is as horrible as this Packer offense has looked all season, I actually have more optimism that Aaron can do more to stick it to McCarthy than the other way around. I feel like McCarthy trying to stick it to Aaron and the Packer organization is something that he'll overcoach and overthink things and shoot himself in the foot. So can the Packers please take advantage of when that inevitably happens, whether that's a challenge flag, whether that's inopportune usage of timeout, or whatever it might be. We'll see. But I would sure love to see that happen, and maybe the Packers are able to go into the half with a lead. Hopefully we can get some turnovers in the second half, and to me, that's the path to victory. Let's run the ball in the second half. I don't see this Packer offense coming out and lighting up this Cowboys. The Cowboys got a good defense. And so they're going to force some things. The key is just not to turn the ball over and for Aaron not to sit there and hold on to the ball and take sacks in situations where we're in a position to potentially get the point if he can get rid of football. Give these receivers a chance to catch the ball. When he's done that this year, they've rewarded him quite a bit. So he's been more of a gunslinger this year, as crazy as it sounds, than he's been in the last 4 or 5 years of his career. Unfortunately, it just hasn't translated to success. And it's not because of any particular reason other than this is just such a disjointed offense. And we've had injuries up front. So I'm not going to make excuses for this. But Dane, I don't know if you have any other pathways for the Packers. I'm not holding my breath that we're trying to figure things out.
No, I mean, I honestly, buddy, I'm curious about your Leap vodka players of the week at this point because, this is a game, Wags, that could come down to like who's special on the field. Are the Packers going to find somebody who's special on the offensive side or the defensive side? Because I'll tell you what, this is a team that at times I would argue doesn't have the passion, and I hate to say passion, but they don't seem to have the fire, right? The fire to win football games. So this week, can we find an individual who's going to step up and absolutely ball out and just take over a football game? We haven't had it much this year, but that's what I want to see this year. Offensive side, defensive side. That's what I'm looking for. Wags, you're on mute.
Thank you. I apologize. I said it for a while. What we've lost from the coaching staff is we don't have that ability to really create urgency and accountability.
Yeah.
Coach LaFleur talks accountability for himself and the players, but that's just not the type of coach he is. That's not his personality.
It's not.
And
you're right.
Unfortunately, that's also a big reason we've lost 5 straight games. Now, that's going to sound like a damning thing to say about Coach LaFleur. I think he's a good coach. I still do. I really do.
I do too.
But he isn't a good coach for this particular team. Unfortunately, right now, this season, in this moment. So hopefully he learns a little bit from that. But we need someone in this moment. I'm not saying long-term this is even a good thing. But in a moment like this, with the season on the line and in crisis mode, the last couple of weeks, you really need someone that's going to light a fire under the team, and that's just not his style. Short term, that's probably what we really need. Now, does that really help players go out and play better on Sunday? If you're terrible, probably not in the grand scheme of things. But to your point, I think that urgency just hasn't translated, and he treats the players well, like professionals, and expects them to go out there and do their job. So I'm not saying he doesn't hold them accountable behind closed doors, but we just haven't had that. So who on this roster as a player, as a leader, is going to be bad? And I just look across this roster, and I really don't see him, honestly. So it's just sort of the personality of this team. It's lacked urgency from the moment we kicked off preseason training camp, from the coaches and from the players. The way that they prepared for this season was very much lacking urgency, lacking cohesion, lacking identity. It's carried into the season, and here we are.
Yeah.
So we can't be surprised by this. We really shouldn't be surprised by this. We've been spoiled by their success the last few years and assumed that that was going to be the way things would go this year. Well, guess what? It's hard to win in the NFL.
It's hard to win.
It's proving it. And unfortunately, when you are lukewarm and you don't have that sense of fire and urgency of the moment, this is what can happen. We'll see if this is a week that the Packers can turn things around. We're at home. I think if the Packers can force some turnovers on the defensive side of the ball, that's going to be what wins us the game this week. I don't see the Cowboys coming in and putting up a bunch of points either. So that could be the difference in this game, and so hopefully the offense can be just enough. I don't think they're going to all of a sudden look amazing, but if they can be just enough, and the defense can force a couple turnovers, to me, that's the pathway to victory this week, and I'll take it however we can get it.
Yeah. Well, Wags, how about we go into these X factors? These Leap Vodka X factors of Week 10 already, Wags. Week 10, and I'm going to defer to you. And let's talk. We're on the offense. Let's talk about the offense, folks. If you have an X factor on the offense that you think could step up this week, drop it in the chat. Wags, X factor, Leap Spirits. Who you got on the offense this week?
Yeah. Well, I said it last week. I'm going to say it again this week. I'm going to go with Christian Watson on the offensive side of the ball, and it looks like he's going to play. And to me, he could be a true X factor in the passing offense, and we don't have to get Devontae Adams-like production for that to be the case. We just need something to take the top off of opposing defenses. And that's like the pressure valve of this entire offense right now. And could that blow things open? Probably not. But it would be instrumental to the highest degree. And all of a sudden, that could open up more lanes. You're not going to get teams like Detroit was last week selling out against the run if they know that Aaron has the capability of connecting with someone over the top. They tried it a little bit with Alan Lazard last week, and were able to complete a couple of them, and one that was very close to being completed, and Alan wasn't quite able to come down with it. So they're trying. He's not. I don't think Allen is the guy that we can rely on week over week to be that field stretcher. So I'm looking for Christian Watson. We've got him this week. Let's see what the young man can do, and let's hope that he can provide a spark in that passing game, and perhaps that helps this offense look like it's slightly more in sync than what it's been.
Yeah, no, I like that a lot. It's a good, bold prediction from you, Wags. And we've got comments in the chat. Dobbs is actually out this week. It looks like he's going to be out for a few weeks with an injury. Aaron Jones, I like the Aaron Jones pick in the comments. John, Aaron, limited participant in practice, but I think he's going to play. Definitely the best player, I think, the most explosive player on the offensive side. Wags, this week, I'll tell you what, Leaf Spirits, offensive player. I'm going to go back to my pick from last week, too. It's going to be Aaron Rodgers. I'm calling it out again, 2 weeks in a row. $50 million man. He's our quarterback. He has not played up to the standards of Aaron Rodgers over the first 9 games of this year. I'm going to say Aaron Rodgers got to go out and dig out and go beat Mike McCarthy at home against Dallas Cowboys at Lambeau Field. That's a reality. Aaron Rodgers got to go win a football game. The offense doesn't have a ton of talent in the skill positions. I like the offensive line, though. I like the running backs. I want Aaron Rodgers to go and take this game over and do what we're expecting him to do. Think about it, Legs, like an NBA basketball game. Sometimes you just need your star player to go win a basketball game. I want Aaron Rodgers to take the ball in his hand and figure out a way to win.
Yeah. I like that. And he was an X factor in a negative way last week. So it was a good pick either way.
Right.
Pick last week, and I think it's a good pick this week. So, Dan, I'll let you lead off. You had on the defense side.
Yeah, you know what? I'll tell you what. I've thought about this a little bit going into this one. And there's a number of guys we could pick, but I'm just going to go with Rasul Douglas. I don't know what it is. Dak Prescott's going to sling that football a little bit. I think Rasul Douglas can be a guy who can play. He's playing on the outside this week, as we would expect. With the Eric Stokes injury. Eric Stokes going to be out for a while, maybe the remainder of the year. I think Rasul Douglas more in place with where he should be playing, and I think he could have a really big week against this Dallas Cowboys offense. So I'm going to go Rasul Douglas. He's been close to a few interceptions so far this year, has not been able to get his hands entirely on one. This is the week he does it. I think Stokes should get a pick, Rasul Douglas could get a pick this week against Dallas.
Yeah, and David Henderson couldn't chance and Barry. I think
I like it.
David, I would go with you on that, but I'm going to go with the new guy that they brought in. It's truly a X factor.
Love it.
And Jonathan Abram. And
yes.
I don't know if it's going to be a box score impact, but Jonathan Abram, known as a physical guy that likes to get in there and hit, he can play special teams. I don't know if we'll see him on special teams this week.
Love it.
But it's more about how can we get Darnell Savage slotted into maybe a better position for him. Does that put Rasul Douglas, which I really like that X factor because maybe he's more comfortable on the outside. So from the standpoint that what Jonathan Abram can bring to the table is not only just in his individual play potentially, and I'd love to see him get his hands on the football and maybe get an interception right out there in his first week in Packer uniform, but does he unlock something in the secondary that they're able to just get after and play to the physical and talent abilities that these guys have? Jonathan Abram is not an all-world type of player. I get that. There's a reason he was released, and maybe he's a little bit scapegoat. But is he a part that makes this Packers secondary greater than the individual? And so it's a sum of all parts thing. We've got a lot of talent with this group, even losing Eric Stokes. So does Jonathan Abram come in and unlock something with the secondary? I would sure love to see that. I hope he gets the opportunity to get out there and play a bunch of snaps this week. Let's see what he can do.
Yeah.
And let's see how that impacts the rest of this Packers secondary and the rest of the Packers defense as we head into this week as we play. All right, Dean, score prediction.
Yeah.
And we've been telling Packers that they need to make adjustments and changes for weeks and weeks and weeks. And I'm loath to pick against the Packers, but I feel like I need to reverse against it. So I'm going to pick against the Packers this week. We've lost 5 in a row.
Whoa!
Yeah, I'm doing it. I'm laying on the sword in order for the Packers to get a win. So I want them to prove me wrong. I'm going to predict the Packers to lose.
What?
First game in Lambeau Field to the Cowboys, 17-13. Now, Dane, you make your own prediction, and after the Packers prove me wrong this week, I will gladly take all the credit for it. So, Dane, go right ahead. I know that I haven't done it, but something needs to be adjusted. So, if we're asking the Packers to do it, you know what? I think it's fair that we ask ourselves to do that.
Well, Wags, let me thank you on behalf of everybody that listens to our podcast for your sacrifice in saying Mike McCarthy is going to come to Green Bay and beat the Packers as the head coach of the Dallas Cowboys. It is not going to happen. You know why? Because Aaron Rodgers is going to get a little bit of swag back. It's going to be ugly, but he's going to find a way to win the football game. Mike McCarthy is going to have classic McCarthyism, which is terrible clock management late in the game. And I think Aaron Rodgers can get that football back with about 1:45 left. He's going to drive down the field. Mason Crosby is going to say, you know what? I'm kicking that damn ball through the uprights. Packers win 20-18. I don't know how the Cowboys get to 18. I don't know, but it feels right in my soul, Wags. 2018, the Green Bay Packers win. Mason Crosby field goal. and the Packers somehow find a win at Lambeau Field.
Dane, I love it. At this point, I don't know how the Packers get to 10 points out of 20. But anyway, that doesn't make it happen. I'm glad to take the wrath of Packer Nation. You can thank me later. Let's hope that Packers can get a W in the win column this week because they certainly sorely need it. So, Dane, any other closing thoughts here for this evening before we sign off?
Well, I'll tell you what, Wags. I don't know how it's possible. The Packers are 3-6, and you and I are sitting here with the longest podcast of the season, which is a remarkable feat for us at over an hour right now. But I'll tell you what, we need to win a football game. And that's what it comes down to. I love everybody who's sticking with us all season long. It means the world, I think, Wags, to you and to me, that we have folks that are still listening to us. Let's win a damn football game this week. Let's get a win at Lambeau Field.
Yeah, as always, be legendary and go Pack.
Go, Pack, go!
Every year I know we gonna go hard. We been that team ever since Bart started. All my cheese heads go Pack go. Ain't showing no mercy, cutting no slack, no. I ain't a bad sport and I'll even wish you good luck. Only thing I will